The auction hall was a place of shadows and greed, filled with alien voices echoing across the stone walls. Strange lights flickered from above, casting a cruel glow over the stage where living beings were sold like objects. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke, sweat, and fear. Chains rattled as guards dragged prisoners toward the center, each one trembling under the eyes of the bidders. At the back of the hall stood cages, it's small and filthy, where the captives waited for their turn. Most of them kept their heads down, hiding from the hungry stares of those who had come to buy them. The crowd was made of merchants, soldiers, nobles, and criminals, different races from across the galaxy, all gathered for the same reason: to buy flesh. Then the atmosphere changed. A guard shouted and pulled a new captive forward. She was small, thin, and shaking with fear. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lights, a soft glow marking her as not human but alien, fragile and exotic. The guards laughed cruelly as they stripped away even the little cloth she had, leaving her bare before the crowd gasps, and laughter erupted from the audience. Many leaned forward in their seats, their eyes hungry, not just for ownership, but for humiliation. The girl's arms wrapped tightly around herself as she tried to cover her body. She looked down at the floor, refusing to meet their eyes, her cheeks burning with shame. "She is young," the auctioneer shouted with a grin, raising his hands toward the crowd. "Strong enough to serve, soft enough to please, and rare enough to make every credit worth it. Who will start the bidding?" The room exploded with voices. One alien shouted 10,000 credits, another raised to 15. A third smirked and called out 20. The prices rose quickly, each bidder trying to outdo the other. Not because they cared for her, but because owning her meant power. The girl trembled, her knees weak. She thought of the chains, of the cages, of the endless nights where she would never be free again. In her mind, every bid was another nail closing the door of her future. She wished for death rather than this shame, but the guards kept her upright, forcing her to stand before them all. She dared to lift her head just once. What she saw were eyes filled with greed, lust, and cruelty. None of them looked at her as a person. She felt like an animal being weighed before slaughter. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought the entire hall could hear it. The bidding climbed. "Higher 35, 40,000? The auctioneer laughed, clapping his hands in delight. "A rare gem, a jewel for your collection, a servant for your house, or a toy for your pleasure. Do not lose this chance." The girl's vision blurred with tears. She could barely stand. She expected her life to end in chains tonight. The crowd was loud, cruel, and endless. No one would save her. No one ever saved anyone here. And then silence. It started small, just a pause in the chaos. The auctioneer stopped, mid-sentence, his eyes flicking toward the back of the hall. The bidders turned their heads, confused. A single voice had cut through the madness. Calm, firm, certain, "I'll take her," was not shouted like the others. It was spoken with a weight that silenced the room. From the shadows of the hall, a figure stepped forward. A man, a human. The alien crowd muttered in surprise. A human in this place was rare. They were seen as reckless, dangerous, and unpredictable. Some sneered, others whispered, but all of them watched. The girl looked up, her eyes wide. For the first time, she saw something different. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in worn travel clothes that carried the dust of long journeys. His face was calm, his eyes sharp, but there was no greed in his gaze. He did not look at her body like the others. He looked at her like she was something more. The auctioneer laughed nervously. "A human. Do you have the credits to pay, stranger?" The man tossed a pouch onto the stage. It landed with a heavy clink, spilling bright crystals that gleamed. Under the light, "It's more than enough." Gasps spread through the hall. The guards looked uncertain. The other bidders shouted in protest, demanding the auctioneer to ignore him. But the rules were the rules. Whoever paid the most won. The auctioneer's smile widened again, though his eyes were cold. "Sold," he announced loudly, "to the human." The girl froze. Sold. She had been sold again. Her heart sank, fear gripping her chest. She thought she had escaped one monster, only to fall into the hands of another. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself, trembling. Waiting for the chains, the crowd jeered at the human, mocking him, whispering about what he might do with her. But he ignored them all. He stepped onto the stage, his boots echoing across the stone floor. Slowly, he took off his jacket. The girl flinched as he came near, expecting another cruel touch. But instead, he placed the jacket gently over her shoulders. The hall went silent again. No one had ever done that. Not here. Not in this place of chains and cruelty. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She looked up at him, confused, trembling. "Why?" she whispered, though her voice was so soft only he could hear it. The man didn't answer, simply placed a steady hand on her back, guiding her away from the stage, away from the chains, away from the eyes that had stripped her bare. And for the first time, a small spark of hope lit within her heart. The crowd could not believe what they had just witnessed. The human had not only placed the highest bid, but he had also done the unthinkable. He had covered the girl instead of leaving her exposed for all to see. The alien audience whispered among themselves, their voices filled with both laughter and anger. To them, the act was foolish. To show mercy in an auction hall was to invite mockery and scorn. The auctioneer forced a smile, pretending not to notice the strange silence. "The sale is complete," he shouted, trying to bring back the usual chaos. "The girl belongs to the human now. Step aside, all of you. No more bids." But the bidders were restless. A tall reptilian noble stood, his golden armor shining. "Under the lights, this is madness," he hissed. "She was mine. I offered more. You cannot hand her over to him." His tongue flicked in anger, and his eyes glared with hatred at the human. The auctioneer raised his hands. He paid more than anyone. "The rules are clear. If you want her, you should have bid higher." The reptilian snarled, but sat back down, his tail lashing in fury. Others continued to whisper, throwing suspicious glances at the human. The girl trembled under the jacket that now rested on her shoulders. She felt its warmth and smelled the faint scent of leather and dust from long travels. It was the first piece of kindness she had known in years, yet fear still clung to her heart. She thought, why? Why would he do this? The human ignored the stares. His face was calm, his steps steady as he guided her down the stage.
At the guards.
Moved aside, confused. Normally, a new owner would drag the slave by chains, showing dominance. But this man touched her gently, as if she were fragile glass. The hall buzzed with disbelief. "Humans are reckless, yes," one alien whispered. "But this one, he is strange," another replied. "He will regret it. No one shows mercy here and survives." The girl kept her head low, afraid to look at anyone. Yet she could feel the heat of every gaze, heavy with judgment. Her mind was torn.
Ow.
What if he is only pretending? What if the kindness is a trick too? Make me obey? Her body shook as memories of her past masters burned inside her. They reached the exit, but before they could leave, a guard stepped in front of them, blocking the way. His armor was black, his weapon sharp and gleaming. "Hold," he said, his voice rough. "Show proof of ownership."
Oh.
The human's eyes narrowed slightly. From his belt, he pulled out the official papers, stamped with the mark of the auction. He handed them over without fear. The guard examined the seal and frowned. "Strange," he muttered. "A human buying here is rare. What use do you have for such a girl?" The human's reply was cold and short. "None of your business." The guard smirked, leaning closer. "If you ever tire of her, bring her back. We'll find you a better deal." The man's hand moved fast, gripping the guard's wrist before he could touch the girl. His voice was quiet, but dangerous. "She is mine now. You will not touch her again." For a moment, the hall fell silent once more. The guard froze, feeling the strength in the human's grip. He pulled back slowly, glaring but saying nothing. He knew better than to provoke a fight with a human, especially one who carried such confidence. The girl's heart raced. She had expected the man to laugh with the guard, to agree, to mock her. But instead, he had defended her, even against armed authority. It made no sense to her. No one ever defended her. The auctioneer's voice broke the tension, calling from the stage. The next item, bring out the next one. The human leave with his prize. And just like that, the noise returned. The crowd turned their eyes back to the stage, greedy for the next victim. The human led the girl through the doors, away. From the stink of greed and chains, outside the night air was cold and sharp. The girl pulled the jacket tighter around her, shivering, though not entirely from the weather. She looked up at the stars, so far away, wondering if freedom could ever be real for her. Beside her, the human walked in silence. His steps were heavy, but his presence was steady, like a shield between her and the cruel world. She wanted to speak, to ask him why he had chosen her, but fear closed her lips. Finally, she whispered, so softly it was almost lost in the wind. Why? Why me? The human glanced down at her, his eyes unreadable. For a moment, she thought he would not answer. Then with a voice calm but firm, he said, because no one else would. Her chest tightened. The words were simple, yet they carried more weight than anything she had ever heard. He had not bought her to use her, to own her, or to break her spirit. He had bought her because she was unwanted, and he would not let her remain that way. But still her mind raced. Could I trust him? Or is this only another game? The streets stretched before them, filled with danger and shadows. Every corner held eyes that watched, every alley whispered threats. She knew the market's reach was long. The bidders who had lost would not forgive the insult. Someone would follow. She pulled the jacket closer, fear gnawing at her heart. Life had been sold again, but this time felt different. Suspense hung heavy in her chest. Was she walking into a new cage, or into the first step of freedom? The streets outside the auction hall were alive with shadows. The neon lights flickered against stone walls, and the smell of smoke and rust clung to the air. Merchants shouted in the distance, selling weapons and food. Thieves lurked in alleys. Waiting for weakness, Human walked steadily, guiding the girl away from the noise of the market. His hand never forced her, never pulled her with chains, but rested lightly on her back, steady enough to keep her safe. The girl's bare feet stumbled against the rough ground. She held the jacket close, but the cold still crept into her bones. She could hear whispers behind them, voices muttering in alien tongues. She knew the auction hall's bidders would not simply forget. Many had lost to the human, and their anger was dangerous. Her heart pounded. Every step felt like walking into another trap. In her life, no one had ever bought her to set her free. No one had ever shown her kindness. So why now? Suspicion filled her chest like poison. She thought, he will take me somewhere else. Maybe his home, maybe another dark room. He will strip me again. It will be like all the others. But then the human stopped. He knelt down in the street, not to strike her, not to tighten chains, but to adjust the jacket on her shoulders. It had slipped, and he pulled it gently around her arms, tying it in place so she would not lose it. Eyes met hers, calm and firm. "Keep this on," he said. Her throat closed with surprise. No master had ever worried if she was cold. No buyer had ever cared if she was covered. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Why do you care?" The human didn't answer. He simply stood again and guided her forward. They turned into a narrow passageway, hidden from the main road. The girl could see a group of guards up ahead blocking the wider street. If they had gone that way, the guards would have questioned them again. She realized, with a start, that the human was not walking blindly. He was avoiding danger. He led her through twisting alleys until they reached a quiet corner where no one followed. There, beside an old stone wall, he stopped. From a small pack, he pulled out food wrapped in cloth and handed it to her. Her hand shook as she accepted it. A simple piece of bread, nothing more, yet it looked like a treasure. Hunger clawed at her stomach, but still she hesitated. What if this is a trick? What if he wants to see me beg? The human's voice was calm. "Eat." Her lips pressed together. Slowly, carefully, she took a small bite. The bread was rough, but it filled her mouth with warmth she hadn't tasted in years. Tears stung her eyes. She tried to hide them, turning away, but the human noticed. "You don't have to cry," he said. Her voice broke. "No one feeds slaves like this. No one covers them. Why are you doing this?" The silence stretched. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "Because someone has to." Her chest tightened. The words sounded impossible. She shook her head, unable to believe them. "You don't know me. I'm nothing. I'm just—" He cut her off sharply. "You are not nothing." The girl froze. Those 4 words struck deeper than any chain ever had. She had been told all her life that she was worthless, a body to be sold, a toy for cruel hands. Now a human was telling her otherwise. She didn't know if she could believe him, but she wanted to. Before she could speak again, a noise echoed from the alley entrance. Footsteps, voices. The crowd had followed. The girl panicked, clutching the jacket tightly around her. "They'll take me back," she whispered. "They'll punish us both." The human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the sound. His hand rested on the weapon at his side, his body tense but ready. He turned his head slightly and said, "Stay behind me." Her heart raced. No one had ever stood in front of her before. No one had ever shielded her from harm. She pressed her back to the wall, her eyes wide as the shadows grew longer. 3 figures appeared to alien bidders, and a guard from the hall. Their eyes burned with anger. "You stole her?" one spat. "She belonged to us," the human's voice was firm. "I paid. She's mine. Leave." The guard sneered. "You think rules matter here, human? You think we will let you walk away with her?" They stepped closer, their weapons glinting under the dim light. The girl's breath caught. She waited for the human to step aside, to surrender her. That was how it always worked. No one ever fought for her, but the human did not move. His stance hardened, his eyes sharp as blades. "Touch her," he said, "and you will regret it." The aliens hesitated. They knew humans had a reputation, reckless, dangerous, brutal when provoked. Still, their greed was strong. One lunged. Forward, the human moved faster. His fist struck the alien's chest, sending him crashing into the wall. The second alien drew a blade, but the human twisted it from his grip and sent him sprawling to the ground. The guard stepped back, fear flickering in his eyes. He spat on the ground and growled, "This isn't over." Then they fled into the night. The alley fell silent again. The girl's knees gave way and she slid to the ground, clutching the bread with trembling hands. She looked at the human in disbelief. "Why would you fight for me?" He turned toward her, his expression calm, because no one else would. Her tears spilled freely now. At the human who had stood before her when others would have abandoned her. For the first time, she felt the faintest spark of something she had forgotten long ago. Hope, and though her heart still feared betrayal, deep inside she whispered to herself, "Maybe this time is different." The night around the alien city was alive with danger. The streets stretched long and narrow, filled with flickering lights, broken stalls, and the eyes of thieves hiding in every shadow. The human walked quickly, guiding the alien girl deeper into the alleys, away from the main market. His hand rested lightly on her arm, not as a chain, but as a steady guide. Behind them, the sound of angry voices echoed faintly. The men they had fought would not forget the insult. The human knew others would soon follow. The auction had ended, but their real escape was only beginning. The girl clutched the jacket tighter around herself. Her bare feet ached against the rough ground, but she did not dare complain. Her heart was beating fast, each step filled with fear. She whispered softly, "They will not let us go. They will hunt us." The human glanced at her, his face calm, though his eyes were sharp. "Then we stay ahead of them." They turned into a crowded street where lanterns glowed red against the dark sky. Merchants still shouted, selling weapons, food, and strange alien pets. The noise was loud, but it gave them cover. Blending into the chaos was safer than empty alleys. The girl kept her head down, afraid someone would recognize her. Every time she heard laughter, she thought it was aimed at her. Every time someone brushed past, she expected chains to wrap around her again. The humans stayed close, scanning the street. He moved like someone used to danger, always alert, always calculating. He noticed 2 guards ahead, standing near a checkpoint. Their armor bore the mark of the auction house. If they passed through openly, the guards would demand papers again or worse. Take the girl back by force. The human slowed, pretending to look at a stall. He whispered to her, "Stay beside me. Do not look up." The girl nodded, her hands trembling. Together, they slipped between the stalls, moving like shadows. The guards were distracted, arguing with a drunk merchant. It gave them just enough time to slip past unnoticed, but safety never lasted long. A shout rose from behind them. Someone had seen. One of the earlier bidders, a short alien with sharp teeth, had spotted the girl in the crowd. "There is mine. Stop them." The guards turned instantly. The street erupted in chaos as buyers and thieves scrambled out of the way. The girl's heart froze. She grabbed the human's arm in panic, whispering, "Run." The human did not hesitate. He pulled her into another alley, his steps strong and fast. The girl stumbled but forced herself to keep up. Behind them, the sound of boots and claws grew louder. The alley twisted left, then right, then narrowed into darkness. The human moved with purpose, as if he had studied the city before. The girl's breath came in sharp gasps, but she never let go of his side. A dead end appeared ahead, an old wall, crumbling but too high to climb quickly. The girl's chest tightened with despair. "We are trapped," she cried. The human's eyes scanned quickly. Beside the wall, a rusted ladder leaned against broken crates. Without a word, he lifted her onto it. She gasped, gripping the metal, her legs weak. I can't." "You can," he said firmly, steadying the ladder with one hand. "Climb." Tears blurred her eyes, but she obeyed. She forced her, trembling body upward, rung by rung. Her arms shook with exhaustion, yet the human's voice kept her moving. Behind them, the shouts grew closer. The guards had entered the alley. The girl reached the top of the wall, her body shaking, but before she could panic, the human was already climbing behind her. He moved fast, strong, pulling himself up with practiced ease. Just as the guards entered the dead end, the 2 of them dropped down the other side. Disappearing into the night, they landed in a quieter street, away from the bright lights. Here the buildings were broken, abandoned. The smell of smoke was replaced by damp stone. It was a place no guard would search willingly. The girl leaned against the wall, her breath ragged. Her heart raced as she whispered, "You fought them. You risked everything. Why not leave me?" The human looked at her, his face shadowed by the dim light. "Because leaving you would make me no different from them." Her chest tightened. She had never heard words like that. Every other hand had only hurt her. Every other voice had only mocked her. But this man, this human, was different. She could feel it in every action, every choice he made, yet her fear did not vanish. She knew the market's reach was long. "They will keep searching," she said softly. "They will never stop." The human's eyes narrowed. "Then we go where they cannot follow." She looked at him, confused. "Where is that?" He didn't answer at once. His gaze lifted toward the horizon, where the faint outline of ships glimmered under the alien sky. His voice was quiet, but certain. Away from this city, away from this world, her eyes widened. No one had ever spoken of escape beyond the market, beyond the chains, beyond the stars. For a moment she almost dared to believe it, but before hope could settle in her chest, the sound of distant horns echoed through the streets. The market had sent out the hunters. The girl's blood ran cold. She clutched the jacket tighter, whispering, "They are coming." The human adjusted the strap of his pack, his hand resting on his weapon. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "Then let them come. We will not be caught." And with that, he took her hand, not as a chain, not as an order, but as a promise, and led her deeper into the night, where freedom was waiting, fragile but real. The city grew quieter as the night deepened. The human guided the alien girl through narrow streets and broken passages, always watching for patrols. The noise of the market faded behind them, replaced by the sound of dripping water and the rustle of wind through abandoned buildings. Every step felt uncertain, but the human moved with purpose. As if he already knew where to go, the girl followed close, clutching his jacket around her trembling body. Her bare feet were cut and bruised from the rough ground, yet she did not complain. Her fear was greater than her pain. She whispered, "Where are you taking me?" The human's voice was low, steady, somewhere safe. Safe. The word felt strange to her. She had never known such a place. To her, the world had always been cages, chains, and cruel laughter. Could there truly be safety in this city of hunters? They finally reached an old stone building at the edge of the city. Its windows were broken, its walls covered with moss. It looked abandoned, forgotten by everyone. The human pushed open the door, the hinges groaning. Inside was darkness, but not the cruel darkness of a cage. It was quiet, still, and hidden. He lit a small lamp from his pack, filling the room with a soft glow. The girl blinked, her eyes adjusting. The room was simple: an old table, a pile of blankets, cracked walls that kept out the wind. Yet compared to the market, it felt like a palace. The human set his pack down and turned to her. "Sit." She hesitated. In her past, when someone gave an order, it meant punishment if she failed. Her body tensed, expecting the worst. But his eyes were calm, not cruel. Slowly, she lowered herself onto the blankets. From his pack, he pulled food and water. He placed them before her. "Eat," he said. Her hands shook as she reached for the water. The first sip burned her dry throat, and tears pricked her eyes. She ate the food slowly, afraid it might be taken away. The human did not rush her. Sat nearby, silent, keeping watch at the door. When she finished, she curled the jacket tighter around herself. The warmth of food and water settled in her body, but her heart was still restless. She looked at him nervously. "Why? You doing this? You bought me. You could use me. You could sell me again. Why not?" The human's gaze met hers. His voice was quiet but firm. "Because you are not a thing to be used. You are a person." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken those words. To her, she shook her head, whispering, "No, I'm not. I was sold like property. That is all I am." His eyes hardened. "That is what they made you believe. But it is not the truth." Her chest tightened. A battle raged inside her, fear against hope, despair against belief. Could his words be real, or was this just another trap, a new form of cruelty, dressed as kindness? Silence hung in the room. The girl pulled the jacket tighter, shivering though the lamp gave warmth. Finally, she whispered, "What will you do with me?" The human leaned back against the wall. His arms crossed. "Nothing. You are free to choose. Stay here tonight, rest, and tomorrow you decide where to go." The words shook her. Choice was something she had never been given. Her life had always been decided by others: what to eat, where to sleep, who to obey. Now this human spoke of choice as if it was her right. It frightened her as much as it amazed her. Her voice trembled. "If I choose to leave, will you stop me?" His answer was simple: "No." Her tears spilled again. She pressed her hands to her face, unable to stop the shaking of her shoulders. For the first time, the tears were not only of fear, but of release, of something soft breaking through the years of chains. The human did not move closer. He did not touch her. He simply sat nearby, keeping guard while she cried. His silence was not cold, but respectful, giving her the space to feel what she had been denied for so long. After a long time, her sobs quieted. She looked at him, her voice small. "I don't understand you." "You don't have to," he said. "Not tonight. Rest." She laid down on the blankets, her body tense at first, expecting pain to follow, but none came. The human stayed awake, watching the door, his hand near his weapon. He kept his distance, yet she felt his presence like a shield. Her eyes grew heavy. Sleep began to take her. A thought formed in her heart, a thought she had never dared before. Maybe I am safe tonight. But outside, the city had not forgotten. In the dark alleys, the bidders whispered their plans. They spoke of the human who had stolen what they believed was theirs. They promised revenge, their voices filled with hate. The hunt was not over. Inside the shelter, the girl drifted into her first true sleep in years, unaware of the dangers gathering outside. The human sat quietly, his eyes sharp, knowing the storm was coming. He had given her food, water, and warmth. But above all, he had given her something far greater, hope, and hope, in a world built on chains, was the most dangerous gift of all. The night inside the old shelter was still. The lamp burned low, throwing long shadows on the cracked walls. Outside, the city whispered with danger, but inside there was silence, heavy, uncertain silence. The girl lay curled on the blankets, but her eyes did not close. Sleep came in pieces, broken by fear. Every sound in the distance, the scrape of stone, the howl of wind made her tense, ready to run. She turned her head slightly and saw the human still sitting by the door. His back rested against the wall, his weapon within reach, his eyes sharp, though his body looked calm. He had not slept. He was guarding. Why? The thought spun in her mind again and again. Why had he bought her only to give her food, to cover her shame, to let her rest? Had ever done that? No buyer had ever treated her like anything but property. At last, unable to keep silent, she whispered, "Why did you do it? Why me?" The human did not look at her right away. His gaze stayed on the door, as if he expected enemies at any moment. Then, slowly, he said, "Because you were about to be lost forever." Her chest tightened. His words carried no hesitation, no cruelty, but they made no sense to her. You could have bought anyone. You could have chosen someone stronger, someone beautiful. Why waste so much on me? Now he turned, his eyes meeting hers. His voice was quiet but firm. "Because none of them needed me." "You did?" She froze. The words struck deep, too deep. Her lips trembled. "Needed you? I don't even know you." "You don't have to," he replied. "You just need to know your worth more than the chains they tried to put on you." Her eyes filled with tears, but anger mixed with them. "Worth more? Do you know how many times I was sold? Do you know what they called me? I am nothing." Her voice broke as she clutched the jacket tighter. It's nothing but a price on a piece of paper. The human's expression hardened. He reached into his pack and pulled out the ownership papers he had received at the auction. The girl flinched at the sight. Those papers meant slavery, chains, and endless shame. She expected him to wave them in her face, to remind her she belonged to him. Instead, he tore them in half. The sound was sharp in the quiet room. Piece by piece, he ripped the papers until nothing remained but scraps on the floor. The girl gasped, her body trembling. She stared at the torn pieces as if they were impossible. You destroyed them." "Yes," he said simply, "because no one owns you, not anymore." Her heart raced. She pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking her head. "But why? If I am free, then what do you gain?" The human leaned back against the wall, his gaze steady. "I don't need to gain anything. Some things are worth doing because they are right." She could hardly breathe. The chains around her heart felt weaker than ever before, yet fear still clung to her. She whispered, "I don't understand you." "You don't need to," he replied, "not yet." Silence filled the room again, but this silence was different. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of something new, trust, trying to grow where there had only been despair. The girl lowered her eyes to the scraps on the ground. Each piece felt like a piece of her past, torn and broken. Could it really be gone? Could she truly be free? But freedom was frightening. She had lived her entire life under chains. Now the idea of choosing her own path felt impossible. She whispered, "If I am free, then what happens to me now?" The human's answer was calm. "That is your choice. You can stay, can leave. You can walk into the night and never see me again. No one will stop you." Her body shook. She had never been given a choice before. Every part of her wanted to believe him, but fear screamed inside her. "If I walk away, would you follow?" He shook his head. No, freedom means no chains. Not even mine. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She had imagined freedom so many times, but always as a dream far away, impossible. Now it sat before her, offered in the simplest words. She whispered, I don't know what to do. The human's eyes softened, then rest. Choices can wait until morning. For the first time, she felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. He truly meant it. He had torn the papers. He had given her food, water, warmth, and dignity. Now he had given her freedom. But outside, danger still stirred. The city hunters searched the streets, angry and relentless. Their voices carried through the alleys, promising punishment for anyone who helped the human. The walls of the shelter shook faintly with their march. The girl curled back into the blankets, but her mind was restless. Freedom was in her hands, yet she was terrified of it. She glanced at the human once more. He still sat awake, still guarding. Even after giving her the right to walk away, her heart whispered a truth she was not ready to say aloud. She didn't want to leave him. And though the city's danger grew closer, inside the shelter, something even greater grew stronger. Trust, hope, and a bond that chains could never create. The night passed slowly, each moment filled with silence and fear. But when the morning light touched the cracked walls, the girl would face her first day unchained. What she did not yet know was that freedom was not just about escape. Freedom would come with choices and with dangers she could not yet imagine. But for now, she clung to the truth that had shattered her chains. The human had spoken it, and it burned in her heart. You are not nothing. The first rays of morning slipped through the cracks of the broken walls. Dust floated in the golden light, dancing softly as the city outside stirred awake. The girl sat up slowly, clutching the human's jacket tighter around herself. Her eyes were swollen from tears, but there was a new calm in her chest, something she had not felt before choice. The human was still awake, leaning against the door, his weapon resting across his lap. He had not slept the whole night. His face looked tired, yet his eyes were sharp, steady, and alert. The girl stared at him for a long moment. She thought about the papers he had torn, the food he had given, the way he had stood in front of her. When danger came, she whispered softly, almost afraid of the words, You could have sold me again. You could have made profit, why didn't you? The human looked at her with calm eyes. Because you are not something to sell, you are someone to protect. Her breath caught. The words struck deep inside her, cutting through years of lies that had been forced upon her. She lowered her head, trembling. All my life I was told I was worthless. It's only useful if someone owned me. I believed it. He leaned forward slightly. They wanted you to believe that, because it made them stronger. But it isn't true. Tears gathered in her eyes again. She whispered, Then what am I? The human's voice was quiet but firm. You are free. The word echoed in her heart like thunder. Free, she hugged, the jacket closer, as if it could hold her together. Freedom was terrifying, but in his voice it sounded real. Still, her fear whispered inside. If I am free, what happens to me now? I have nothing. No home, no family, no place to go. The human stood, stretching his tired limbs. He walked to the window and looked out at the rising sun. Then stay, he said simply. Stay with me, not as property, not as a slave, but as someone who chooses to. Her chest tightened. She stared at him, her voice trembling. Why? Why would you want me to stay? He turned, his face calm, but his eyes strong. Because you deserve more than the life they forced on you. And because no one should face this galaxy alone. Her tears spilled, warm against her cheeks. She dropped to her knees, bowing her head. Her voice broke as she whispered, You covered me when they stripped me bare. You gave me food when I was starving. You gave me freedom when I thought I would die in chains. I do not want to leave you. The human stepped closer, kneeling before her. He lifted her chin gently so her eyes met his. Then don't leave, he said. Her heart pounded. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. Not because someone forced her, but because she chose it. She whispered, "Then I will stay. As your companion." The bond between them sealed in that moment, not with chains, not with papers, but with trust. Yet the danger was not gone. Outside, the market hunters still searched. The voices of bidders carried through the city streets, furious that the girl had slipped from their grasp. The human knew the fight was not over. He packed his things quickly, handing her a small piece of cloth to cover her feet. "We cannot stay here long. They will find this place. We must move." She nodded, fear flickering in her eyes, but now there was strength too. For the first time, she felt like she was not running alone. She walked beside him, not behind him. As they left the shelter, the girl looked back once. The broken room had given her the first night of safety in her life. But what mattered more was the man walking beside her. She whispered to herself, "Chains did not break me." He did. They moved through the city streets, careful and quiet. Guards searched the roads, merchants whispered warnings, hunters sharpened their blades. Yet the girl did not feel the same despair as before. Each time fear crept into her chest. She looked at the human, and hope returned. At last they reached the edge of the city, where ships waited in rusted docks. The human glanced at her. "If you walk onto that ship, it means leaving everything behind. Are you ready?" Her voice was steady, though soft. "I was already left behind by everyone. Now I'd choose where to go." The human gave a small nod. Together, they boarded a small freighter, its engines old but strong. As the ship lifted, the city shrank beneath them. The girl pressed her hands to the window, her heart racing. She had never seen freedom this close. The human stood behind her, watching the stars grow brighter. He said quietly, "The galaxy will still try to chain you, but as long as I live, no one will succeed." She turned, her eyes shining with tears. "Then I am not afraid anymore." The stars stretched before them, endless and wide. For the first time, the girl felt something powerful in her chest, not despair, but belonging. They had mocked the human for wasting his credits. They had laughed when he covered her with his jacket. They had sworn he was a fool. But now, as the ship carried them away, the truth was clear. They had tried to sell her as nothing. Yet with him, she had become everything.